Not everything has to be an aesthetic. I just want to dress the way I want to dress. I just want to eat the food I want to eat. It doesn't have to be turned into an aesthetic. And I really think maybe the older generation should really reevaluate what their definition of success is. The only reason this is your definition of success is because of the fact that the royal family bestowed this upon you and that there is a proximity to whiteness that it affords you. This is an election that will be determined by and influenced by and marked by the sentiment on immigration. Well, hello there, people. Welcome back. It's been a hot minute. Long time no speak. Welcome to It's That Deep, the podcast. I'm your host. My name is Feyisara, and this is a podcast where everything is that deep. It has been more than a minute. It's been multiple minutes since I last sat down and recorded, since I last released an episode. Your girl has been working like a dog. Like a dog. It was Taraji P. Henson that said, I work like a dog day and night. And that's what I feel like. I feel like I've been working. And so your girl was somewhat burnt out last week. And I woke up on Friday morning and I was like, I can't come and die. For those of you who don't speak Yoruba, that's what I just said. I can't come and kill myself. The body can't give what it needs to give right now. And so we're going to unfortunately have to go without an episode. So I've missed you guys. Like, what's the tea? What's happening? I've really missed doing this podcast because it's been a week, but it's technically been 2 weeks. You know what I mean? When we add up the mathematics and carry the one. So, yeah, I'm just glad to be back for another episode. And I was kind of gutted that it was like, oh, election season. You're missing, of all the times you could miss an episode, this election season. But you know what? God is able to redeem, and I, by his grace, am able to bring you another banging episode to compensate for what we didn't get last week. So that's what I plan to do this week. So yeah, I hope you guys have been well. If for any reason I don't produce an episode for you on a Sunday evening, my TikTok is actually there, and where I didn't do an episode last week, I have been chopping it up on TikTok. We've been breaking down manifestos from each party. I still have some to do actually. And we've been talking about what happens week to week on the campaign trail. So you can follow me at IG-feyisara.olu on the Clock app. And speaking of the Clock app, I have made the decision, drum roll please, and I think you guys are going to be proud of me here. I have made the decision to go live for the first time ever on the Clock app on election night. So July 4th, if you are awake, I will be doing some election coverage on the evening of the election. Because, you know, BBC will be offering, ITV, all of the people then will be offering. But I just feel like for people who aren't into all of that political jargon and aren't, you know, trying to hear the somewhat biased media, I can offer somewhat of an alternative. So I will be doing that. It's my first time going live on TikTok. So pray for me. But no, I think it should be fun. I think it should be really, really good. So yep, little housekeeping, I guess there. Follow me on the app. And if you want some immediate coverage on the election, we'll be chopping it up on that day. And you know what? I will get an episode to you that week also. I just thought, why not double up? Okay, so enough of the waffle on that. I feel like that's all the housekeeping that we need to do. As always, follow us on Instagram, subscribe over here on YouTube, follow on Spotify, comment. I want to know your thoughts. I want to know, you know, what are we thinking, and particularly with this week's episode. So I think we should get into it. When I think about this week's episode, we're starting off light. As Tem said, love me Jeje, we're going to start off Jeje, and it gets progressively worse. So yeah, sit back, it's going to be a good one. So let's get into our first honourable pick. All right, so honourable pick number one, and with all of the hating that I'm doing throughout this election and some more hating that I'm going to do on this episode, I just feel like let's keep the first one light. Do you know what I mean? We don't need to hate. Maybe we just do some light analysis, do you know what I mean, on the culture. Because I think, oh, by the way, just rewind if you haven't been here in a while, if you're new here, the stories are never just the stories. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, the stories, yes, are the stories, but we also go that bit deeper here on this podcast, and we try and investigate what the stories really reveal to us about who we are as people and where we are as a society. And I feel like this first honorable pick does exactly that, because I spend a lot of my time on TikTok. I'm not, at first I tried to be coy. No, I'm not ashamed. I am a TikTok warrior. I spend a lot of time there. And I was scrolling on TikTok, and if you know anything about TikTok, there's always a new trend. There's always a new fad, always something that the people are obsessed with, and then they move on to the next. And as of recent, the thing that the girls, particularly the girlies, have been obsessed with is this thing called the Sade aesthetic, which is named after the phenomenal Sade Adu. It's like a soul, she's not jazz, she's like a soul singer, from like, it was the 80s. It's my parents' generation. I know my dad loves her, but like, she's an old school singer, and they have tagged themselves as Sade babies, which even saying just sounds so weird. I want to preface this by saying this, yeah. In my dictatorship, if I was to ever become president, the first thing I will do is ban the word aesthetic, because it's too much. It's not by force. I feel like we are overdoing it. Not everything has to be an aesthetic. I just want to dress the way I want to dress. I just want to eat the food I want to eat. It doesn't have to be turned into an aesthetic. It feels like in this day and age, there is a label and there is an aesthetic for everything under the sun. If it's not mob wife, it's Sade girl. If it's not Sade girl, it's Y2K. If it's not Y2K, it's Y2K Nollywood, or luxury, or quiet luxury. Like, guys, we're doing too much. There is like this incessant need to over label everything and also over classify everything. And I feel like it's doing more harm than good. I say that because the purpose of aesthetics and these sorts of labels is to, I guess, differentiate tribes of people who subscribe to a particular way of life, right? But actually what it's done in this modern age is almost stifle our self-expression, to the point that if I don't subscribe to a particular aesthetic, I don't have an identity. And I feel like that's really dangerous. Like, these children, these kiddie bops that are on TikTok calling themselves Sade girls, in a few months will be calling themselves something else. And so actually it's not, by labeling everything an aesthetic, you're not enabling people to join a tribe and sit in that tribe comfortably. What you're enabling them to do, or what we as a society, I'll say, are enabling them to do, is move the goalposts on their identity every 2 to 3 working days, because there'll be a new aesthetic by the sunrise. You know what I mean? I think, it's really exposing the fact that for a lot of, trigger, but a lot of Gen Zers, because we're the people who subscribe to trends in that way, like, we don't know who we are. I think that's what this whole aesthetic thing, like, we don't know who we are. Because if we did, we would be able to be really firm in that, rather than being swayed by trend. Oh, everybody's dressing like a mob wife, so I'm now going to dress like a mob wife, even though I don't own a single piece of clothing that a mob wife would own. Like, it's just this incessant need to be identified by others as a particular thing. And so the altering of my entire life because the perception of others is so important. It's all very warped. It's all very weird. And I just think, we just should go back to the days where we dress how we want to dress. Not even that anybody's being forced to adopt these aesthetics, but it is almost like an unspoken rule on TikTok. It's like everyone's doing coffee makeup. And so me too, I will do coffee makeup. And it's just, it's very strange. I think at this age, I'm not going to lie, at this big age, a lot of us are pushing 25, some of us over. It's weird. I get it if we were like teenage girls. I think that's a thing for teenage girls to, like, everyone has their phase, right? Some people dress like punks. Some people dressed, I personally did not. I think I was just a normal kid. Like, I literally just put whatever my mum put in front of me, I put on, I have a sister who, I was telling her the other day, like, why did you choose to dress like a boy? Like, it was so random. Like, she woke up one day and decided she wanted to wear like suspenders. she just had a whole phase of like wanting to dress like a boy, and all of us were just very like, what is going on and why are you doing this? But that's like the most I've ever encountered like an aesthetic, so to speak. But again, like we were 13, 14, you're exploring your identity, and obviously that's going to manifest in what you choose to wear and put on your body. But I feel like at this age, it's no longer a thing of like exploration or like I want to play, because I feel like I'm exploring how I want to dress. But there's doing that, and then there's being dictated to by society and by TikTok what the latest thing is. And so I'm going to alter my entire life based on a trend that lasts about 2 seconds. It's very strange. And I think it's that weird balance and that weird space where like online becomes offline, and what's happening online translates to literally how you live your life. Like you don't leave what you see on TikTok. It's immersed itself so much into our daily practices, which is really worrying, because I always try to create the boundary and try to separate online from like, okay, that's not real life. It may be somebody else's, but it's not mine. It doesn't apply to me. I guess the point I'm getting at is that social media has ruined a lot. And actually, no, I take that back. See, this is me thinking in real time. Social media hasn't ruined a lot. I think our lack of boundaries with social media, and our inability to correctly put it in its place. As with anything, everything gets abused when it's put out of place, and it's not ordered correctly, if that's the right English. And I feel that for a generation like ours who consume at a very unhealthy rate, where we've misplaced social media in our lives and where we've allowed it to cross certain boundaries, it's manifesting now in how we show up, and in things like identity crises, and adopting language that we would never adopt, and adopting ways of thinking that we would never adopt. We've got to be really careful with just like, the TL is just a TL, the For You page is just a For You page. Like, just take it easy. It doesn't need to come into real life. All that TikTok speak, like, keep it on TikTok. Don't be a loser. Speak like a human, where I'm literally looking at you in the face. Don't speak to me in TikTok speak. It's weird. So yeah, don't be a loser and go and pick up Sade girl aesthetic, because that's what they're doing on TikTok. Dress how you want to dress. Find your own aesthetic. There was even that talk the other day about like this stupid conversation that comes up over and over again about like, oh, all the black girls in London dress the same. Well, that's what trends are for, darling, number one. And number two, that's what happens when we all consume the same content. We all watch the same influencers. We all watch the same content creators. It's bleeding into our offline lives. So yeah, touch grass, guys. Okay, so for honourable pick number 2, I want to throw a question to you guys. And I have my answer already. But the question is, should in 2024, at our big ages, black people, should we be accepting OBEs, MBEs, every BEs? Should we be accepting them from the royal family? Pretty much the answer is no. No, like, I really don't know why there's a debate going on here. But you know what? Black people are not a monolith. So let's dig into this a little bit, because there was some ruckus, a little bit of a tussle, a little bit of a ruckus this week. There was a lady up in Liverpool by the name of Michelle, look at your notes, Fraser, Michelle Charters. And the irony in all of this, right? She is the head of the International Museum of Slavery in Liverpool. And this week, she was not dragged, let me not over exaggerate, but her choices were dragged, because she accepted an OBE as part of the King's birthday honours list. So I guess if you don't know, obviously we now have Baba Charlie as our king, but the late Queen Liz, she would, on her birthday every single year, draw up a list of people to honour for their accomplishments, for their contribution to whatever sector of society, whether that's the arts, whether that's entertainment, sports, healthcare, whatever it is. And so obviously Baba Charlie is now doing the same. and he put this lady on his list because he had his birthday a couple of weeks ago, and he put this lady on her list, and she accepted it with great, pride. I mean, she was proper chuffed with herself, and it just opened a Pandora's box on social media of like, what the hell is this lady doing, and why on earth are black people in 2024 still accepting OBEs and MBEs and these sorts of honours from the royal family? You know what it is as well? The timing is all just a bit. The timing just makes this worse for her because Juneteenth was last week. It's Windrush month, and I believe Windrush Day is tomorrow, meaning the day I'm recording this. But it's it's just really off timing for her. But I really don't know that black people who accept MBEs and OBEs recognize what they're doing. It literally stands for Order of the British Empire. The British Empire being the very entity that went around the world and colonized and ramaged. Is that even a word? Ramaged, just bulldoze their way across the world, enforcing on people, their value systems, their belief systems, their morals, their way of life, their language. Like, the British Empire, although, now it's the Commonwealth, right? We don't call it the Empire. There's been such an attempt to paint it or to present it through rose-tinted glasses. But the history speaks for itself. You know what I mean? There's no amount of painting that you can do. There's no amount of sunglasses you can put on to not see the British Empire for what it was. And for somebody who is literally the head of a museum pertaining to international slavery and the transatlantic slave trade, you would think that she has just a hint of knowledge about the gravity of the empire. And so with that knowledge, her accepting of this OBE is really raising a lot of eyebrows. And I personally don't get it, because I don't know how you can know everything there is to know about the empire to the point that you've been appointed as the head of a slavery museum and then turn around and accept an OBE. That's strange. It's something is not 2 + 2 is not equaling 4 here. She did write a statement in response, not to the backlash, but to her nomination for an OBE. I'm going to read it so I don't butcher her words. She said, it will also, speaking of the OBE, impact others from the community and show young black people in particular that success is attainable. I just think, like, Auntie Michelle, it's not that deep. Huh? The irony. No, it's not that deep though. It's not. Like, you're blowing English, you're using ye old English, using every vernacular in the dictionary to tell us that basically you want the clout and the notoriety that's associated with having an OBE beside your name. Don't try and bamboozle us and fool us into thinking that this is about representation. It's not. I don't know, again, like, how you can become the head of a literally national museum concerning slavery, and think that any sort of representation of your people in that capacity makes sense. I say this all the time. I don't think all representation is good representation. So I don't think we should just throw around that word and automatically assume it means good things. It's not about representation. It's about having a posture now that you have an OBE beside your name. And I think there's something that we should investigate in here, which is that, what did she say? Let me read it again. Because she said, this should show young black people in particular that success is attainable. And I really think maybe the older generation should really reevaluate what their definition of success is, because the only reason this is your definition of success is because of the fact that the royal family bestowed this upon you, and that there is a proximity to whiteness that it affords you, and that in your mind is why it is successful. Young black people don't, okay, yeah, we need to be able to see, black people in high positions or whatnot, but we're associating an institution that has historically, disrupted communities, really, like, deep the history of the British Empire for a second. Just deep it, complete. The only word that's coming to mind is like selfishness, self-serving. They went around the world to seek out and further their own interests. And then they had the gall and the temerity, like I said, it's Windrush month, to call, we're now Commonwealth nations, right? They had the gall and temerity to call Commonwealth nations back to the UK to rebuild a country that was destroyed after the war, a very war in which they won't even really acknowledge the presence of black and brown soldiers in. It's all very dystopian, it's all very bizarre, and you're longing to be associated with an institution that represents all of that is off. And it's off because at the root of it, what you care about is proximity to whiteness. And so that's not success to a lot of us. Auntie Michelle, I don't know how old she is, but she represents a generation that really, you know, proximity to whiteness is the goal. It's the be all and end all. If I can talk like them, if I can dress like them, if I can be recognized by them, and feel as though I'm on a level playing field with them, and as they see me as an equal, that success. Really, really off and random analogy I'm about to give it, but I finished watching Queen Charlotte, and Lord Danbury, if you watch Queen Charlotte, thank the Lord he died, because he was yuck. But Lord Danbury, his character really represented that, where, so if you don't know, the Queen Charlotte or Bridgerton world, there was the ton, which initially was separated into like the blacks and the whites, or like the coloured people, I don't know if I could say that, but the people of colour, and the whites. And there was a point at which, because Queen Charlotte is black, so because of her entrance into the royal family, they started to mix the ton, and obviously that was an uproar, and, you know, it was a real shaking of the system. And Lord Danbury, Agatha Danbury's husband, was very much longing for a title, longing to go out shooting with the white men, longing to be in their private members clubs, and to him that was a sign of success. But actually, it doesn't mean anything. Like, what does it mean? It's all name, it's all fodder. It doesn't actually mean anything unless you're able to harness that power and make real change for your community. It's all about appearances. You can't convince me otherwise. And so that's what the Michelles and the Lord Danburys of this world represent. And unfortunately, to a lot of up and coming, you know, Gen Z and millennial black people in this country, that is not the measure of success. We are at a stage now where we are redefining and rewriting our own definition of success. It's got nothing to do with other, like, not even talk less of white people, like, it's got nothing to do with other people, period. I consider myself to be successful because of the standards I set for my life, or that the Lord sets for my life. And that's it, point blank, period. It's not about other people recognize me as such, and so therefore I now consider myself to be successful. No, it's not about that. But yeah, anyways, I did put this on my TikTok. I do judge every single black person that accepts an OBE or an MBE. It's either that you're not well read, it's either you're a bit, or you are deliberately choosing to invest in a white supremacist institution that does not care for people who look like you. And I can't respect that. So either you're a dum-dum, or you are, or an undercover racist, I don't know, what would I call it? But I ain't got no respect for you. So none of my friends, no matter, and I know, listen, no matter what the heights you reach, no matter where you go, I know my friends were going far places. Don't ever, if William in 20 years comes and says, take an OBE, no, I'll deal with you. I'll deal with you. Don't worry. But yeah, no respect for it at all. So there's that. I'm on the hater train today. I am on the hater train. I'm not getting off. I love being a hater. Okay, our main story, and we're too close to the election now for it not to be an election main story. And I also have not spoken about it in a few weeks, so I said, let's do that because it's important. And there's some patterns that I'm seeing that are making me to draw certain conclusions. But another cheeky plug, I am doing a weekly rundown of what happened on the election trail on my TikTok, and I was gonna say I'm trying to do like daily updates, but I'm gonna be honest here and say that this is probably the most politically apathetic I've been ever. So much so to the point that I'm not really desiring to consume election content the way I would previously. I know I have to because I have to this platform and whatnot. But even this week, like, I haven't really watched. Well, okay, I have been busy, but like, I haven't watched really the debates or the sit down conversations. I just haven't done it just because I can't. I just don't want to. I really do. And I'm not saying this lightly. I think the lot that we have to choose from are the most selfish and self-serving politicians that we have, and delusional and out of touch, and they just don't get it. Like, they are the worst bunch of politicians that we've ever had to choose from. Jeremy Corbyn, we filled your hand. Oh my god. Jesus have mercy. We filled your hand so bad. And I just, you know, sit and think sometimes what this country would be if we had a glimmer, you know, or a slither of a Jeremy Corbyn style politician, not even in the way of like ideology, but in the way of like, let's serve the people. Do you know what I mean? Let's prioritize the people. And so for those kind of reasons, I've been apathetic. But I braved it. Man, for this week. I've been doing some reading, I've read some articles, just really looking at where this election is going. I think everyone is kind of like agreed that this is a win for Labour. Well, technically, it's a technical win for Labour. I don't know that it is a personal or like ideological win for them, because I think a lot of people are fed up with them. But technically, I do believe they will technically win more seats than the Conservatives. I think all of my reading and watching this week, the little that I have done, is making me to reiterate what I've said from the start of this year, which is that this is an immigration election. I said it at the start of the year, and I'm standing on business, that this is an election that will be determined by and influenced by and marked by and because of the sentiment on immigration. I don't think I'm changing from that posture. And I think what I've seen so far has affirmed that over and over again. So I'll give you some examples. You know, a few weeks ago, there was this whole Rishi Sunak and D-Day stuff. If you don't know what D-Day is, I actually don't really know what D-Day is because I'm not a fan of war. But they're war veterans who served in some war shot. I want to say the Falklands. I literally have no clue. But they're vet shot, and we celebrate them every year because of their service to this country. Like I said, I'm anti-war, so I don't really care. But obviously, as Prime Minister of this country, Rishi Sunak has to go, and he has to represent and stand beside America and France, you know, because, or maybe it was the World Wars. I don't know. But anyway, Rishi Sunak went to the ceremony in France, but he left early because, you know, he's on a campaign trail. And I was listening to The Rest is Politics with I forgot his name now, Rory something and Alistair Campbell, and they were basically saying what they know of Rishi Sunak is that he's a very by the book guy. Like, if something is in his schedule, he's going to make that appointment. And unfortunately, even prior to his calling the election, he had something in his schedule which meant he had to leave D-Day, and that was just a slap in the face to a bunch of very patriotic people, but of course the veterans who they were honouring at that time. And so there was so much uproar from that. Like, he's had a really bad election campaign, and that was one of the reasons. That was just another nail in the coffin. But of course, Nigel Farage took that opportunity to pounce on that, and in his analysis of the situation, basically he said it, that Rishi Sunak is obviously not patriotic enough, which is coded language that we all can really understand, which just means he's not white, and he's not, in Nigel Farage's eyes, British enough, hence why he left D-Day early. Not that he was the Prime Minister of a nation. I can't believe I'm even out here defending Rishi Sunak, but that was just one example. And I think reform in general, like the rise of reform, this was a party that at the start, 4 weeks ago, did not have one seat in Parliament. They're now projected to win 6 or 7 seats. And the only reason that they're projected to win that is because their stance and what they are known for is immigration. It's the conversation around immigration. And, you know, I was watching, you guys know I love Busayo Twins, man. If you don't know about her, follow her. I think her political analysis is great. But she made a video talking about how this is a working class election. So I'm saying this is the immigration election. She's saying this is the class election. And she's saying that the outcome of this election will be determined by the working class. Whilst I agree with that, the reason I'm instead calling this an immigration election is because the only way to really distinctively appeal to the working class is to appeal to their sentiments on immigration and appeal to their patriotic sentiments. There are studies, and it's, I think all throughout history across the nations, particularly in the West, you always find that the most patriotic people are working class. Like, poorer people are patriotic. And there's many reasons for that. They are not as well traveled. They're not as well read. So they don't access the world in a way that richer people can do, because they can hop on a flight and go to Peru, or they can read a book that gives them insight into what's happening in Ghana. Like, the poorer classes don't have access to the world in that way, and so their view of their nation is usually very romantic, and it's usually very patriotic to a point of insanity. And they usually guard it a lot more fiercely, and for them it's a source of hope. In a way, it's not for richer people. Richer people don't need to cling on to their patriotism because they have money. Like, really is the long and short of it. And so with poorer people being patriotic, the way to get their vote is to appeal to that, because realistically everybody is feeling the cost of living crisis. Everybody is feeling the pinch. Everybody's feeling inflation and the fact that things are going up. Whether we feel it to the same degree is another conversation, but everybody's feeling it. What was £1 2 years ago now is £2.37. Like, everybody's feeling it to some degree. So appealing to the working class on the cost of living crisis is not distinct enough to get their vote, if that makes any sense. But what is patriotism. And this is our country, and we need to keep Britain British. And so Reform have done that really, really well. I think they're delusional enough that they actually believe it. But I do think they're also quite smart, and an element of them is playing up that need for Britishness in order to gain the votes of poorer people who need a scapegoat for what they're experiencing. And the scapegoat is always going to be not only black and brown people, but people who in their minds go against everything that they represent. So immigrants. I'm saying all of this to say that I do believe that this is an immigration election, and I believe, similar to Busayo Twins, that yes, this is going to be dictated by the sentiments of the working class, but the sentiments of the working class are being shaped by this immigration issue. And so I think whoever's able to capture the frustrations of the working class, the white working class in that way, is gonna get the seats. I think the Conservatives, I don't know, something about them is very like, they're doing it. They're very much doing it, but it's like they don't believe, like they're not giving it the full vim. They're not giving it the full, do you know what I mean? I feel like they could go a lot further, although what I have seen has been despicable. They don't have an outrageousness the way Reform do. And I also think there's an element of, well, you know, the Conservatives can say what they want on immigration, but the reality is immigration has increased on their watch for 14 years. So whatever they say is kind of in one ear, out the other. There is the also other added element of the fact that all of this is being said by a party led by a brown person whose parents came here by way of immigration. So it is just, you know, I wouldn't give it the credibility either, to be honest, if I was a white working class person. Who I would give credibility to is a Nigel Farage, a British white person with bad teeth, who literally campaigned on the basis of immigration to get us out of the European Union. So he has a track record of bigotry and xenophobia. And so the Conservatives are doing it. They're still a bit cautious. Like, they haven't gone all the way far right. So yeah, I do think that's interesting. So as I've said before, if you go back, like genuinely, because I like being right, go back and listen to some of my early episodes this year, because I really think, I'm not losing my mind, I have said it multiple times, that this election will be determined by immigration. And I think we're seeing it now. I don't know why I can't suddenly remember Labour's policies on immigration in their manifesto, but my Labour manifesto video is coming, so it will be there on my TikTok at IG-feyisara.olu. Yeah, even Reform, oh my God, I even took the time to go and read Reform's manifesto. It's just immigration. That's all they know. We don't know what they'll do with the NHS when they get there. We don't even know. That's what they cho immigration. I'm telling you, the outcome of this election will be determined by immigration. That's it. How they're going to win the vote of the working class, of the white working class, it will be immigration, because everybody needs a scapegoat. And Reform can't scapegoat the Conservatives too much, because realistically they're not going to get enough seats to have any sort of significant power, and so they still need allies in Parliament. And so they can't scapegoat the Conservatives just that much. They can't do it, because it won't play well for them when they do eventually get a few seats in Parliament. And so the only thing that they can point to is the black and brown people who are coming into this country. Yes, very much illegally, but as I've said multiple times, it's because there are no legal routes into this country. They're coming here. Not all of them are great, granted. Not all white people are great. Not all British people are great. I'll give you that. But a lot of them are coming here, and they are serving, and they are working, and they're doing the jobs that nobody wants to do. And I mean, I don't even need to sit here and make the case for immigration. I don't think people deep the gravity and just how courageous and the courage it takes to leave what you know, pack up your life, travel, put your life at risk to travel the seas with children nonetheless, to come to a place that you think is going to be better for you. And that presents itself on the world stage as a better alternative, just to get here and be mistreated and dehumanized and all of the things, and scapegoated for, like, again, back to the British Empire, centuries, of abuse and torment at the hands of the very people whose country you're coming into. It's all mad. Like, it's such a psychological mind game. Like, you're blaming me, you're gaslighting me for a history that I had no part of but was actually enforced on me. You're mad. Something's not right. But there we are. That is the logic of many, many Britons. You would be surprised. I think stepping out of London, that London bubble, will do us a lot of good. Because we realize that not everybody gets sense. I was watching a video of a guy who was blaming immigration. He was with guys, when I finish telling this story, your jaw will be on the floor. He was blaming immigration for the reason he can't get a job. Please tell me why he came out of prison just some months ago for child sexual abuse. Uncle, come on, let's use the upper law. It's not immigrants as to why you can't get a job, my guy. It's because you are on the children's sex offender registry. I just, like, the logic is not logicking. It's mad. But watch very closely. We've got 2 weeks left of this election. Just watch. See how they move, see what they say, see the sentiment they try and rile up, we know what Reform's going to do. They're just very predictable. But even Keir Starmer, I've not taken my eye off you. Keep watching, bruv. Immigration is going to shape the outcome of this election. Exciting times ahead. Interesting to see where the next 2 weeks go. And again, I feel like we know what the results are, but seeing the degree of the results, like, we know the Conservatives will lose, but how much will they lose? Do you know what I mean? We know Reform will take Conservative seats, but how many will they take? Yeah, I think it will be an interesting couple of weeks. So stick with me, man. Stick with me. More analysis coming up. More is happening on TikTok. Like I said, I'll be on TikTok live on July 4th. Chatting through it all, if I don't pull the hair out of my head out of frustration because of these people. But it's all happening. So make sure you are locked in, make sure you are subscribed, and just all of the things, that you should do to support an up and coming content creator. And yeah, I actually don't know what episode we're on because I didn't film last week, but I want to say 26. I want to say 26, which is pretty cool. So that's episode 26 of It's That Deep, the podcast. Thank you for joining me. I love this podcast, man. What a good time we have. What a good time. So fun. Anyway, join me next week for some more chit chat, from some more analysis. And yeah, I'll see you next week.